Hello, welcome back to Conflict of Interest, and our honoured and learned guest is Daniel Liptak of Liptak Hatfield something or other.
Advisors.
I think you'll find it's Hatfield Liptak. H becomes before L. But you're a bit like Kevin Rudd, you sort of problems with these fundamental. Yeah, listen, Dan, you showed it just when we were off, just when we were during the break. You told us about a figure which I just found staggering about the amount of money lost last year globally is more than the cost in today's dollars of World War I and World War II.
Yeah,
combined.
That's just in equities.
So that's just the stock market.
Global equities lost $30 trillion. US.
It's just a staggering loss of wealth.
It's amazing, isn't it? It is absolutely amazing.
You two guys are economically literate, I'm not.
Yeah, well, that's obvious.
Just tell me, 30 trillion, where did it go? And can we find it and get it back? I mean, where's it gone?
The deleveraging event is actually what's causing it to disappear.
But where's it go to?
We're having...
How can you... I mean, it must be somewhere around the world.
Oh, some people have probably picked up on it, and they'd be hedge funds, and they might have made some of that money back and put it in their own pockets.
But I can never understand, if 30 trillion disappeared, who's got it? That's what I want to know. And can't we get them and get it back?
Well, it's a loss of wealth, though, isn't it? I mean, it's a loss of... you say a company's worth X dollars on one day, and then you say, no, it's really only worth Y dollars.
Well, is this the fault of the overly paid managers and directors?
No.
Whose fault? Where would you... I mean, we've heard a lot in the last few months about, the fault of capitalism and its greed and its management and deregulation. Where do you say, why has this happened, and why has it happened so quickly, and who's to blame?
Right.
Three simple questions.
Yeah, and no one's actually got...
I want you to answer them all correctly.
And a short answer will do.
Okay. I think actually they weren't paid enough. The bankers weren't paid enough. That's my first.
What, are you serious? Mm-hmm. Why do you say that?
Because the best paid people were in hedge funds, and the most innovative managers and people and the smartest people went to work for hedge funds, particularly in London and New York.
So the bankers were left with adults.
You got it, and the idiots were running the...
The idiots were running the asylum.
Mm. Not the idiots, the lunatics, the inmates.
Well, I think that's probably a little bit too harsh, but it really...
But it illustrates the point.
Illustrates the point, yep.
Deregulation, look, that may well be an issue, but it's not the major issue. The major issue, Paul Keating pointed it out the other day, which was the imbalance between savings and borrowing across the world. So we have the saving countries, China and Germany, now India, and obviously the deficit countries, the Western countries. And they're massive imbalances in capital. $2 trillion or more sitting in reserves in China.
So the Chinese have got $2 trillion in reserves
of US dollars.
Of US dollars.
Really?
So the only reason the US is surviving today is courtesy of China.
So that's where part of the 10 trillion's gone. I follow. It's simple. Look at it like that.
Well, part of it in a sense though, Dan, isn't it, that one of the problems is the US dollar is now in free fall. Effectively, has been in free fall for some months.
No, it's actually strengthened.
I was going to say, and then has strengthened, but. It's really only strengthening on the back of Chinese support, isn't it?
Well, that also, Europe is in such a mess. If you were to put your money anywhere, in a relative sense, US looks a lot more safer than Europe.
Yeah.
What do you say? I don't know if you heard Peter before the break saying that he thought. I mean, we're talking about Citibank, which I just find extraordinary. The government owns 40% of one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. Is that going to be a long-term proposition? And secondly, does it mean what Peter says, and that is that do you think Obama is going to seek to nationalise parts of the economy?
Bank nationalisation?
I don't think he's... look, it is bank nationalisation. It is just to steady the economy and to steady the... Look, most of the fear in the market now is driving prices down, and it keeps driving it down. Because
so it's irrational?
It's irrational fear now that's driving the markets. So what he's trying to do is to restore some confidence and put a floor, and by putting government support in, it provides a floor.
But how long does that government support stay there? When do you say, well, we'll pull it out now?
Look, the Northern European experience was a couple of years later. They started selling their banks in the early 90s.
This was in Sweden?
Yes, they nationalised the banks in '92, and over a couple of years later, they sold them off again. Now, Obama has said that he's going to look to offload their holdings over a period of time, which is good, because effectively they will be able to pay back some of that debt, which they've used to finance that position.
If he does it.
What about in Australia? the Rudd government, your perception of where they're going on the economic crisis? I mean, if you had to give them a marking out of 10 so far, where would you put them?
Personally, I probably wouldn't give them a very high score, but I think if you were looking at it from a social democratic point of view, well, they've done pretty well. It's trying to balance out the needs and wants of some of the least fortunate in the country, with also keeping the rest of the country at least a little bit buoyant and keeping the spirits high.
But we have on that by handouts.
Oh, I think they're terrible. There's we could be doing so much better.
Yeah, and we're paying for the handouts. I mean, the people who've worked hard and saved their money and pay their tax now are forced to contribute to the people who haven't worked and have put their monies into bad investments. That's what's happening in America as well. I mean, why should we?
I think it goes further than that. I have to say, I mean, I disagree with you on that, because on the point about the Rudd government's performance. I mean, I think the handout policy to business has just been disgraceful. Instead of lowering business input costs like corporate tax rates, etc., we've seen Kim Carr, who's like the jolly candy man, the minister for come to me. I'm a business, I'm in trouble. Look, I'll write you out a cheque. The car industry, he said about Pacific Brands last week, most extraordinary statement. He said, I was going to give them more money.
Yeah.
I would have given them what they wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just irresponsible.
Oh, I think.
And it's big dollars we're talking about here, Dan.
Going
on to the bottom line.
Picking winners is a dangerous thing to do for government. But they are being cheered on by the angry mob out in the streets looking for blood. And the angry mob want to see some sort of action. And the politics that we're seeing and the politicians are making decisions on the run.
Well, we're seeing politics, not economics.
Not good policy.
Oh, no.
Not economic policy. I don't see any leadership, any economic leadership here. I don't see a plan, a strategy. I don't see Rudd coming out and reassuring the country and saying, we know what we're doing, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to manage it.
Is there too much talking down of the economy now by leaders?
Look, it's interesting. The GDP numbers are, well, particularly the trade deficit, an extra 1.5% coming into GDP in the last quarter through increase in exports.
Yeah, because of the lower dollar. Yesterday, Reserve Bank held interest rates, which means they think that the economy's steadying.
So there's some good signs, and on top of that, the Baltic Dry Index is up like 100% this year.
Now, the Baltic Dry Index is an index, as I understand it, which is one of the key indicators of shipping movements around the world.
Yeah, and sort of future shipping movements.
Yeah.
So you're looking forward 6 to 9 months.
And that's going back up. It's going north.
Yeah.
And
but on the other
hand,
hand,
it to go the other way. You expect it to drop if imports and exports between countries were going to be decimated.
Oh, last year it fell to really low levels, at levels at which the shipping firms could not actually make any money. They were basically shipping for free. But now the prices are back up to levels which all the ships can actually make some money shipping goods.
Well, you're right about shipping. I read recently, I think it was in The Economist, a quote from a businessman saying that when he wants to ship things now, he can go to his shipper and he'll get it free on board, sort of free, just pay your taxes. But you get it done for nothing.
That's on the container ships. The Baltic Dry is the bulk goods.
Right, cargo.
So the steel and the grains, oil.
Well, let me just divert to unemployment. What's going to happen in this year on the unemployment figures? I think they're going to rocket, aren't they? A lot of people are going to lose jobs.
No one's job is safe.
As Kim Carr said.
Yes.
How so reassuring. Because I'll give them a handout.
I mean, that's almost as good as the recession we had to have from Keating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not bad in the middle of it.
Except sort of Paul's made a bit of sense. Unemployment is an interesting issue because people have talked about this being the greatest global downturn since the 1930s, but we've still got unemployment though well below 10% in both Australia and the US.
The US is racing towards 10%.
And you think it'll go over 10%?
Oh, look, I'm not an expert on unemployment in the US, but it's definitely getting close.
Just make it up, like every other economist we have on this program.
Well, I think it's going to be. I
think it's a lagging indicator too.
Yeah.
So
it shows you what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will see, and it will overshoot. There'll be more people laid off than there probably will need to be.
Yep.
And so then
we'll come back.
They'll come back.
When we come back after the break, we're going to keep Daniel here in the hot seat because we want to talk about superannuation, which of course is of vital interest to very, very many Australians.